In the study of philosophy or the study of debate, you might come across this idea of what they call an ad hominem attack or an ad hominem argument. And what this is when people are debating some subject and they're trying to decide what the truth is of it, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to present facts and logic and say, well, this makes sense and this doesn't, or here's a truth and here's a falsehood, and let's figure out how those all affect the subject at hand. And you cast back and forth these ideas of what this is or that is, and hopefully through that discussion, the people involved will come to an agreement of what the truth is, what really is true. And then that'll make everyone's life better, because then you can act in the truth. And as Jesus once said, right, the truth sets us free. And so it's really great. But the ad hominem attack, which literally means the attack against the man, is considered a fallacy. It's wrong. You will always go wrong with this. It's just a bad thing. And what it is it's instead of dealing with the arguments that are being made, the facts that are being presented, you instead decide to attack the person who's making the argument. And you decide that I'm going to be against him, and I'm going to attack him, and try to basically make everybody who's listening think that this guy's not credible. Because if he's not credible, then we won't listen to his argument. Well, it's illogical, because his argument isn't based on him. It's based hopefully on facts. You could look at what he's saying and say, no, that's not true because of this, or that doesn't make sense because of this. And that would be a reasonable debate. But what often happens in debates is somebody will eventually, their argument starts to fall apart, or they get frustrated, and so then they'll just, well, you're an idiot. And then they attack the person, right? Well, you're stupid. Nobody should listen to you because you're stupid. Now, that's an extreme version, but that's the idea. What happens is you leave the argument behind. You decide to resort to attacking the person making the argument by doing things like name calling, right? Like calling them this or that or the other thing, or something like very common in our day, calling people some version of Hitler. Everybody's Hitler, it seems, like, or whatever the case is, and we'll make them out to be some sort of a villain by labeling them something, or we'll do blame casting. Well, it's your fault that this happened, and your ideas always end up this way, or and so then we'll basically try and draw this idea that you're a person who makes bad ideas, bad suggestions, and so you're wrong about what we're debating about because that's the person you are. Right? It's an attack against the person, or we'll project a motive over people. We'll decide you're only saying that because of this, or you just think that because of this, and then we'll decide that we know the reason they're saying it. It's not because it's true, but it's because of something other, some motive they have, some bias or some history they have. These are all various forms of ad hominem attacks, or ways of attacking the person instead of the ideas. But it's a terrible way to live, and it will often, if not always, it will often lead us into disaster, because the fact is, the facts don't depend on the person. Now, if I tell you that the sun is going to rise tomorrow, and if a complete moron sitting next to me tells you that the sun is going to rise tomorrow, we're both saying the same thing. Does the fact that, well, maybe I'm the complete moron, but does the fact of my moronicness change the fact of the sun rising tomorrow? I mean, it's not based on the person, but we do this. It's terrible, and our world has fallen into the trap of doing it so much. It's so frequent. If you read, it doesn't take long, watch a Twitter feed, and it doesn't take long before some debate on a Twitter feed will reduce itself to name calling and bullying and motive projecting and all this stuff. Same thing on Facebook discussions, or anywhere you go where social media exists. It doesn't take long for arguments to break out and to quickly devolve into some form of attacks on each other's person. See, our modern era is teaching us that this is the way you should live. Rather than using logic, we should use emotion. Rather than using facts, we should just use narrative and the fiction of that. And so it really just comes down to who can yell the loudest and who can get the most voices yelling for you, and then somehow we'll think that's what truth is. You can't win in those kinds of worlds. Nobody wins. Nobody, neither side. In Mark 11, Jesus is talking with the Pharisees, and he has this interaction with them. Mark chapter 11, verse 16 and 19, and he says this, "But to what shall I compare this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplaces, who call out to the other children, and say, we played the flute for you and you did not dance. We sang a dirge and you did not mourn. And we'll just pause there for a second. I'm going to read the rest in a second, but just to understand right there, it's an interesting little thing. But sort of what he's saying is this: the kids basically were saying this: we're playing this song, you're supposed to dance, but those kids weren't dancing. You're supposed to dance. This is the song we're playing, and well, now we're playing this mournful song, and you're supposed to mourn, but you're not mourning. And it was like they were saying, we control the argument, we control what happens. We're the ones playing, so you need to follow us and do what we like. And there's this kind of accusation of you're not doing what we expect you to do, what we want you to do. And so he uses that kind of a local proverb, and then he makes this point, which is the key. He says, for John, talking about John the Baptist who came before him, for John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man, referring to himself, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a gluttonous man and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. You see, what he's saying is you guys have decided, you've just decided it has to be your way. You're really not interested in the truth. You've looked at it and you said, oh, look, John the Baptist who came preaching this way, he was perhaps the one mourning, if you will. He came with the, repent kind of a message. And he's like, and you guys are saying, no, we're playing this great dirge. You should be dancing. Like, what's wrong with you? Or not the dirge, rather the other, whatever the other's called. Like they're annoyed with him because he's not saying what they want. And then he said, well, the Son of Man comes. He came, he wasn't eating and drinking. I come and I am eating and drinking. And you're still condemning. You're saying, oh, now I'm a glutton. I'm a glutton. That's right. He had a demon. I'm a glutton. And there's this idea that it doesn't matter what we do. You're just against us because we're not doing what you want us to do. All right? John, who is this way, and me, the opposite, doesn't matter. And this is the thing, this is what happens when we fall into this way of thinking that all we want to hear is people just feed back to us what we want, or if they don't if we don't agree with us, then the person is a bad person, and so when we make this attack against the person. It happens in our world. So basically this: if you don't agree with the current narrative in the world, well, you're a bigot. If you don't agree with the current support, if you don't support and actively involve yourself in the actions that are considered right at the moment, well, then you're the problem. If you don't endorse this particular moral code, well, then you're whatever, a racist or whatever it is. And they're very quick to simply say you're the bad person because you're not dancing when we play our flute and you're not mourning when we play our dirge. You're supposed to be doing what we want you to do. And if you're not, you're a bad person, right? John the Baptist, you've got a demon. And oh, Jesus, you're a drunkard. Oh. It's a terrible place to get to when a society falls to this level, when people allow ourselves individually to fall to this level where we just simply turn everything into a personalized attack. Then there's not much hope. I'm sorry. There's not much hope. How will you ever find truth? How will you ever be free? But take courage in this. So Jesus says this to these people. That last part, that last little sentence, he says, yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. It's such a cool little sentence because what he's saying there is a great truth, right? Wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. What he's basically saying is this: the truth will out. It'll happen, right? It doesn't matter what people say. The truth is still the truth. If people get angry and they slam the table and call you names, well, the truth is still the truth. If people decide to label you some sort of a bad person, well, the truth is still the truth. If they attack the man, the argument still exists. Even if they can convince everyone in the world to hate you because you're a bad person, if what you're saying is true, if you've got a good argument, it still exists. It doesn't go away. It's like the old Looney Tunes cartoon. Remember that? If you're old enough to remember from when I was a kid. There's this scene where I can't remember if it was the road. I think it was Bugs Bunny or whoever it was. Anyways, runs off this cliff and he's being chased by Elmer Fudd or someone. And they go off this cliff and then they're standing there in midair and Bugs Bunny turns back and looks and they're there and the expression goes something like, oh, well, I haven't learned about gravity yet. And so he remains standing and Elmer Fudd goes plummeting, or Yosemite Sam or whoever it is goes plummeting down the cliff because they have learned about gravity. So down they go. And it's like the world thinks that's how it works. Like that we can somehow just create reality however we want to. We can't. Truth is truth. And it has a way of being effective in the world, even if everybody doesn't agree, or if people just reduce themselves to name calling and ad hominem attacks. The truth will out. So a healthier world would be one that searches for the truth. And if you find yourself in a place where you feel you've got a good argument, don't be discouraged by your opponents who might yell at you and shout at you and say you're a bad person. Just be calm. Just realize wisdom is vindicated by our deeds. In time, the truth will have its effect in the world, and it will become obvious because it is.